Tara Reid is the entrepreneur behind Kollecto, which is kind of an Etsy for high-end art. And that was her old business. She also runs a company called Apps Without Code, which helps people create applications without code. It's a coaching business, a teaching business. I spoke to her because I wanted to figure out more about Kollecto, honestly. I was very into this idea of listing high-end artists on a website and making art affordable. So we talked about that. But throughout the conversation, I realized this is a person who has worked at Google. She was a graduate of 500 startups. She was trapped in this venture-funded startup. Kollecto was venture-funded, and she had to leave. And now she's gone completely lifestyle. She's built this business where she's free to do whatever she wants. And we talked about both of those things in detail. You're about to see all of this. We talked about Kollecto and how she got her first clients, how she validated the business, how she started an art collecting business without knowing anything about art, how she found her strategic partners, all of that's in here. And then we talked about how she flipped the script, how she got out of the venture-funded business, how she validated the coaching business that she has, how she finds clients for that, how much she spent on Facebook ads to create her marketing channel, and how she grew that bootstrap business from $400,000 in revenue up to millions and millions of dollars in revenue using weekly webinars. This is quite the video. Stick around, and here is my conversation with Tara Reid. Let's jump into it. I found you through Kollecto because I am an artist and also an entrepreneur / art collector. And I might have found you through an Instagram ad. I'm not even sure, but I just love that whole concept. Would you mind starting with a little bit of background? I want to talk about Google. I want to talk about all this other stuff, but if we could start with Kollecto.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
So I started Kollecto in 2014. And really, I was trying to accomplish a couple of different things. Like looking back on that experience, I can kind of see a little bit more clearly what it is I was looking to do. So the first thing that I was looking to do was, at that time, I was just starting to think about collecting art and having artists in my space, artists' work in my space. And I was looking around at my blank walls and was thinking about how I wanted to have something more curated and be able to tell stories about the artists and the artwork on my walls. And so I was starting to dabble in learning what it looked like to find art and what that process was like. I had met someone who ran a gallery that I really liked and was talking to them and learning from them. And I also was doing a lot of searching for artwork online. And so what I was finding was that the process of finding art was really old school. You would go one by one to individual galleries or one by one to individual art sites, or speak individually to a gallerist and you kind of tell them what they like and they may be able to help you. But there weren't a lot of tools out there to help you. And when I thought about the entire landscape of art, if the other means of art, right? If you look at movies and film, there are all sorts of recommendation engines for film, right? Look up Netflix. And if you look at fashion, even as an art form, there's all sorts of tools to recommend you fashion and clothes. Like that was becoming a thing at the time in the space, these recommendation engines, but I wasn't finding anything for artwork that you put onto your walls, like paintings and photography. And so I really wanted to start out. I started out just wanting to help people find artwork. And I started out not necessarily thinking about, Kollecto eventually became an app, but I wasn't necessarily thinking about building technology to begin with. I was just thinking about solving people's problems. So on the first week of launching that company, I went on LinkedIn. I searched for art advisors who could help me start a company and start helping people find artwork. I went to coffee with a couple different art advisors and found one. Her name was Emily Havens that I really liked working with. And we started helping people find artwork. We set up a Typeform survey for people to type in the kinds of art that they liked. And we experimented with the different questions we needed to ask to get clear on what their taste was, even if they didn't know. And then we went and we hunted the internet to find art for them and put the artwork recommendations into a separate different Typeform portal. If folks aren't familiar, Typeform is a tool for surveying and for collecting information from people. And so we had one Typeform that collected information about people's tastes and another one that actually served as like the portal for delivering the art recommendation. So it had the piece of artwork that we recommended, and then it had a rating 1 through 5 scale, and people could say how much they liked the artwork and type in some information about why they liked it or didn't like it. And they kind of have this portal for telling us about the artwork recommendations we made. And that was the start of it, right? We were helping people manually and using some technology to do that, but it started off helping people manually and solving a problem.
So the first one was you realized you're not an art collector or you're not an art buyer. So you went to LinkedIn and you reached out cold to these people that knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, completely cold. That's right.
What did that message look like?
Oh, it was like, my name is Tara. I'm launching a company to help people start art collections. And as you know, usually if you want to get an art advisor, you need to have a $10,000 budget or above. But I want to help people with smaller budgets. Do you have some time for coffee? I'd love to chat with you about, helping me with the startup and working together on this. It was something like that.
Yeah. So you were very open about the startup and it sounds like you found the partner. And then the next step was to send out the surveys. For these surveys, how were you finding clients or where were you sending those surveys?
The survey wasn't positioned as a survey. It was like the sign up form on our website. So I was sending the link to our website. I think I started and I went through my own last people that I'd emailed and went through some friends from like college and high school and like people who I thought might be interested. I did the blast that way. I started posting on social media saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. Anyone interested? And so I started and this is one of the things I see founders do often is when they come up with an idea, they get really quiet about it and they're like, I need to go into a cave and plan it all out first. I took the opposite approach. I was just like, let me just shout as publicly as possible about what I'm doing, and I bet some people will be interested.
Yeah.
And so I was talking on social media about it, all sorts of stuff like that. That was the first phase of it.
I love this because I mean your background's in tech, so everyone in your circles.
Yeah.
I mean, if you show somebody art, it's not like you like $10,000 budget. Even they probably would be able to afford, but these are pieces that are what like $1,000, $1,200, stuff like that.
Yeah, we focused on artwork that was anywhere between $100 and $3,000. So that was the range.
And it's a totally different. I mean, it's completely untapped. Like I walk into a lot of art galleries and all. I mean, there's a couple pieces there
Yeah.
that are under that limit, but most of the art is like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 pieces. Not even for originals, just for like high quality prints.
And most of that artwork is online, right? So the marketplace for finding that kind of affordable artwork is on the internet, but it requires you combing and combing and combing through pages, knowing which sites to go to, all of that. And so that's kind of one of the problems we were trying to solve and tackle on early on.
What happened? Because you've got Kollecto, it's still in beta. You started it in 2014. Why pivot or what? Like because you refocus now on apps without code, and it sounds like that's the one that's hitting way harder. What happened to Kollecto? Why do you think that this is hitting harder? Like basically, what's your mindset around that?
So I worked on Kollecto for about almost 2 years. And we raised money. We went through 500 Startups Accelerator in Silicon Valley.
Which you don't even put in your bio, by the way.
Yeah. It's funny. At the time, that was such a big, huge piece of my life as an entrepreneur. And now my life looks a lot different as an entrepreneur. I'm happy to explain that. But I took a really different route with Kollecto that I did with Apps Without Code, which is my second company, which I now spend the majority of my time on. And so we went through that whole route, did the traditional startup thing, raised money, got lots of customers, scaled up, we're doing good in revenue. But I was building a kind of business that wasn't the kind of business I wanted for the kind of life I wanted to live as a CEO and as an entrepreneur. What I mean by that is that I think I knew this deep down at the beginning of Kollecto, that I didn't want to run a venture-backed business that had VC funding and then thus had expectations of scaling at a particular rate. And often in that space, there's a focus on growth and not necessarily on profitability, and not necessarily on the life that you want you and your employees and team to be able to live. And so I kind of found myself getting caught up in that, the typical things you're supposed to do when you launch a startup. And while Kollecto was doing well, I was blogging along the way about my journey building Kollecto's technology and app without code, because although we started with just that survey form, we eventually built an algorithm that matched people to artwork based on their taste and did all of that without writing any code. We built that algorithm on a software platform called Bubble. Bubble.is is their website. And it's a platform that allows you to create fully functioning apps without writing any code. So we'd done that. And I was just blogging about my experience being a non-technical person who just knew a tiny bit about business, launching this tech company. And I had so many people who were interested in my the blog post that I was writing. And I got invited to do a TED talk on building apps without code. And I got even more people really interested in saying, hey, I have an idea for an app too. Can you help me build my app? And so I ended up I decided I was going to help a small handful of those people. And so I did a class of 5 people. I said, I'm going to take 5 people and I'm going to help them with their app idea. I called it Apps Without Code Bootcamp, and I helped those 5 folks. And then when I got around to launching it again, I had 70 people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is a whole business in and of itself. And so fast forward to now, we've got this really scaling business of Apps Without Code where I get to work with entrepreneurs who are in a similar position as me when I was starting. And we get to not only help them build an app that they've been thinking of for a long time, build a business around it so it generates revenue, but also build that app business in a way where it doesn't require VC funding, where VC funding is a nice to have, but not a requirement. And so I love doing that work.
We had Rand Fishkin on this podcast maybe 5-6 months ago. He had the same thing happen at Moz. He had raised like millions and millions of dollars and he just got trapped. He came on the podcast after he started another company.
Yes.
Because Kollecto could have been a lifestyle thing too if you chose not to raise. Like it could have supported you that same way.
No, actually it could not have. Here's why. And this is one of the things that I teach a lot to the entrepreneurs that I work with. If you have to make sure that your business model for the company matches the kind of life you want to live. So for Kollecto, our business model was that we took a commission of the sale. So let's say that you bought a piece of artwork and it was $1,000, let's say. We would go to the artist or the gallery and we would negotiate it for a slightly discounted price. You would purchase it for the same price that was sticker price, but we would purchase it, for a slightly different price, and then there would be a margin that we could take in facilitating that transaction. So it was a transaction fee model. With transaction fee models, you need scale. You need to have a lot of customers in order to have enough transaction fees to pay your bills and to pay, for your team and your company and your employees and all your costs. And so what it required is for us to build this big, huge business in order for us to have profitability. And that wasn't something that I wanted. I think I'm really interested in big businesses. I think businesses that are required to be big in order for you not to be broke, those are problematic depending on what kind of life you want to live as a CEO. And so it was generating revenue, but not profit in the way that we needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
And that's not something we talk about a lot in this tech space. Right, we talk a lot about top line revenue because those are the things, if you want investors, those are the things they're really interested in. But if you're going to build a business that allows you to live the kind of life you want to live and not have to go those routes, then profitability is what you want to think about too. And for me, if I think about the kind of life I want to live, I have this commitment this year, for example, to take 4 month-long trips in a different country. So I just got back from Spain, for example. So I'm able to travel and have the lifestyle that I want to have with this kind of company. I'm able to work. I work 2 or 3 days a week. So I'm able to do that. And so those things are important to me in crafting the kind of business I want to be spending my time on and how that matches the life I want.
Me and you are on the same page. I try to take 4 days off a week.
I love it.
Yeah. I usually do Monday and Tuesday for art and thinking about fashion and just walking around at this point. Do you run a successful business that sells to other businesses but feel like you could be doing more? Well, at Experiment 27, that's exactly what we help other businesses do. Our focus is finding cornerstone clients, finding people in the Fortune 500 or finding brands that are over 15, 20, $30 million in revenue, a lot of times billion-dollar brands, and using our marketing tactics such as cold email or targeted content to find those customers and sell them on your business. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to learn how we met with, it's most of the Fortune 500 at this point, along with dozens of billion-dollar brands, companies like Krispy Kreme, Walmart, Morgan Stanley, and a ton of other ones, go over to experiment27.com. We'd love to chat. But yeah, that's the kind of thing where if you don't build your life to do that, it's the default is working 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day. If you don't force that life.
I even with Apps Without Code, I would say maybe 6 to 8 months ago, I had to do a check for myself because I found myself even in Apps Without Code working a ton, and I had to re-engineer that so that my team was able to handle a good amount of what they needed to handle. I was able to operationalize and systematize things that needed to get done had to scale back on some things, grow some things in order to support the kind of life I wanted to live and what my team wanted to be able to live.
So what did that look like? So you found yourself working too much. Then what was your thought process? How'd you separate that out? Like how did you get to the point where you're not working every second in this business?
I think it's about mapping out the things that are actually critical for the business and things that are not. And also getting really real with yourself about what goals you have. Like be specific about this. One of the things I see founders get caught up in is this push and pull between the focus that you need to have around profitability and revenue and then the focus that you can have around vanity stuff like press and having investors and like some of those things that make you feel really good, but maybe don't actually get you to the end goal. Some of those things can get you to the end goal. But I think if you made a list of all the different activities you could be doing in your business, some of them are going to get you straight to your goal, and some of them are going to kind of zigzag you around and maybe are not going to get you directly there. Maybe they'll get you there eventually, or they're long-term strategies or those sorts of things. And when you're running a bootstrap business, you have less flexibility around making really long-term decisions like, oh, I'm going to do this. We're going to focus on PR now and it'll pay off in a couple of years. Like you need to be focused on the things primarily as a small team that are going to be keeping you afloat and generating revenue and building up this sustainable business for yourself. So I made a list of all the things that we were doing and spending time on, and the things that were not revenue generating or directly getting us to some sort of impact, I took off the list.
So what were the big ones for you?
There were some projects that we were doing around like content development was one thing. There was some content that needed to go inside of our course that where we coach and teach entrepreneurs. And there was some content, there was a lot of content that was just like fun. We thought it would be good exposure, like that sort of thing. We did significantly less of that. I cut down significantly on the number of interviews and panels and traveling that I was doing for events. I cut down almost entirely on that. I'm just now starting to do a little bit of that, but cut down on that significantly.
What's the big driver? What was the one that you needed to focus on?
Oh, we needed to focus. You need the one thing on the list to focus on?
Yeah, because you said you're focusing because we did the same thing where we're going directly for whatever the one or two tasks that are generating income for us because that's the only thing to focus on. So like, what are your one or two?
So for Apps Without Code, we have a free workshop that we do every Wednesday. And if folks want to come, you're welcome to. It's workshop.appswithoutcode.com. And so we do a free workshop that we do every Wednesday. We invite people to it and teach them about like what exactly we mean by building apps without code and how it works and how it looks and all those things. That's like our core piece of free content that we do. And then there was a bunch of other things we were doing as well. So we cut out all the other things and just focused on that core piece. And on that workshop, I also tell people more details about the coaching program. And if they want to work with me, actually get their business up and running and get it profitable and all those things, we talk about that. So that was the main thing that we focused in on. Like, how do we get more people to know about this free workshop that we do? How do we get people to have the best experience at this free workshop that we do, et cetera?
You call it a workshop. I could call it a webinar. Just if we wanted to get super clickbaity, it's like how to grow your business on one webinar a week.
Yeah, it's totally the same thing. It's a webinar. It's a webinar.
That's amazing. How do you drive traffic to that right now?
So right now we drive traffic mainly through ads, Facebook and Instagram. But when we started, it wasn't ads. I didn't have any money for ads. So when I started, and actually I have a really good blog post. We can maybe share the link to this. Outlined exactly what I did to launch Apps Without Code. The way that I found people was I did social media takeovers on other people's social media accounts that had similar audiences to me. So for me, like when I first launched, I was focused a lot on women and people of color, particularly who did not know how to code but had great ideas for apps. So I went on. There's an account called Black Girl Nerds. There was Blavity. There was a couple different accounts that I went on, and I said, hey, what I'd like to do is for the day, we'll pick a day on the calendar. I'd like to kind of take over your social media, your Instagram account. And I'm going to teach your audience just about some things that they should know for free about building apps, building businesses, all those sorts of things. And if we can put my link in your bio, we can do that and people will be able to sign up. So I would do that on day, like there'd be a day where I was taking over this certain person's social media account. I'd be on video saying like, hey, my name's Tara. I run a company called Apps Without Code. Here's what I do. Now let me show you this one little mini lesson of things you need to know about apps. There's 4 different types of apps. Here are the 4 different types of apps you need to know. right? And then there would be another video later on in the day, like, hey, I'm back and I want to teach you another mini lesson. So I was doing these kind of takeovers of social media accounts. And I'd say, if you want to know more, I'm doing a workshop on this date that's going to be more in depth. You can click on the link in the bio to sign up. So I had those partnerships to do that.
Were those, did you find those via cold outreach also? Was that LinkedIn, or how did you get in touch with these accounts?
It was a combination. I cold reached out to people, and then there were a few people who I knew or friends of a friend that I kind of asked for a connection to. But I essentially just made a list of the social media accounts that had, I think at the time, somewhere between 10 and 50,000 followers, and who had a specific target audience where I could pretty much make a strong bet that the majority of the people who followed that account would also be interested in what I was doing.
Yeah, it's a strong market. I have one consulting client that's trying to do the same thing, like person of color, woman, same exact sort of thing. And I'll definitely recommend her to do that same thing.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who do this, like a lot of the folks who are in my bootcamp program do this for their apps in totally different markets. So they'll go find someone, like they've got an app that's around like home improvement, and they'll go and talk to people who have social media accounts where they teach you about how to do home improvement, how to design your home, how to do all these things, and they'll go and do takeovers on their accounts, right? So you can do this in any industry.
I'm thinking of, for us, we'll probably do it for like cold emailers or make money online guys. Like we could do this pretty easy. But then the thing that's working now, so that's the free way to do it. And then the thing that's working now is pushing via ads, which that's the scalable way to do it.
So the challenge with doing those things is you've got to do a new takeover every time. You've got to find new partners and continue doing that. And so then we moved over to ads, but we didn't start doing ads until about a year in. And I think we probably had done maybe at that point, maybe 400K in revenue before we started doing ads. Maybe we were 18 months in and we'd done like $500,000. That's right. 18 months in, $500,000 in revenue. That's when we started ads.
When you pushed to your to ads for the first time, so you're 400K and you got some cash. I mean, not much, right? Like if you're spending money, like, all right, how much did you spend on that first ad push? And were you worried? Like, how were you thinking about this?
$2,000 a week. I was totally worried about it. And we just committed to doing a couple weeks of 2000 to just test it and get good at it. But before I had started doing this, before we did the ads, I was very clear on exactly what my funnel was and exactly what my conversion rates were along the way. So I knew what the conversion rate for the webinar was. I knew what the show up rate for the webinar was. I knew all those things. And so then when we put on ads, I was able to tell if, okay, the issues with the ad or the issues with something else. I knew that because I had benchmarks.
You basically did the free media, the partnerships or the takeovers. You got people into the funnel. You knew the funnel worked. And then you just adding ads to it was just one more step. It wasn't building the entire funnel from scratch.
That's right. The funnel was already built. And it's like really helped us grow. Like we really consistently do about 100K, over 100K a month now. And so it's really helped us grow as we use ads, but you've got to kind of take those stepping stones to get your funnel figured out first. And then you can turn on the faucet with ads.
It's interesting how quick it could scale up too. Because you went 400K over 18 months. And then as soon as you got ads going, it probably took a couple weeks to figure it out, right?
I would say that it took a couple months to figure it out and get really good at ads, but yes, that's true.
Okay, and then as soon as you cracked that after a couple months, now your revenue is way higher than it was.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Tara, where is the best place for people to check you out online?
I spend most of my time on social media on Instagram, so it's at Tara Reed _REED. And you can also shoot me an email, tara@appswithoutcode.com. And if you want to come to the free workshop that I do on Wednesdays, it's workshop.appswithoutcode.com. I'll show you what it looks like to build an app without code and how you can build your app in a way that actually generates revenue for you. It's not a 99-cent app. It's actually a premium price point app that you can actually make a lot of money from.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
I hate most business content out there because they don't deliver enough value. It's almost like they're trying to give you as little as possible so they can sell you on a course. And I've hated this business content for years now. So in order to fix that, I decided to start making content on my own. And that's what we focus on the Alex Berman YouTube channel. They're in-depth business tutorials, takeaways, real email scripts that we have taken and we've learned from doing sales for almost a decade now, having generated hundreds of millions of dollars in leads for our clients and millions of dollars in sales for them. So we're giving all of this stuff away for free. You can get a playlist of our most helpful videos on b2bsalestraining.org. It'll go right to the YouTube channel or youtube.com/Alex Berman. And once you get to that channel, it's not enough to just watch the videos. Give it a subscribe. And I would love to see you around. Right now we post 3 videos a week. We've been doing that for the last 4 years. See you soon.